Mr. McDowell?
Projector.
What?
Projector.
The doc cam?
Or is it called dog cam?
Doc cam.
Dog cam. Did it work?
There it goes. You're on. Your time has started.
Okay. One council member thought it necessary to remind me to bring honey to the table. Since election of 2004, I found that bringing honey to the table sometimes brings out dangerous bees. It takes time, age, and experience to bring honey to the table, and I'm ready to bring that honey to the table by taking the first quick step since my media monopoly strategy of the 2004 presidential election, coordinating Kucinich in and out of this district. While being unconstitutionally detained at Medical Lake, the workers not only discounted my political work, business work, college degree, locations lived, they discounted football awards. Most Improved Award 2000, being football captain in 2001, Lineman of the Year Award 2001, All-Conference Offensive Line Award 2001, Most Inspirational Award 2001, and discounted Best Personality written in the high school yearbook along with the weightlifting records. So my new plan is to develop a new football game for Freeman versus Medical Lake. It's going to take a lot of networking, databasing, researching, contacting, and mailing in order to get 17 constitutions signed by the former United States presidents and the current United States president, including attempting to get Jimmy Carter's signature before he passes. I went to Kathy McMorris's office today and talked to the manager and had a good discussion. Maria Cantwell's office had a good discussion. Baumgartner's office, no one in the office. I went in to the public safety building asking for constitutions supposedly passed out to deputies after receiving the rank of deputy or talked about in their graduation by Aussie staff knew nothing about any constitutions that I was asking to complete this project. Not one constitution in the public safety building, let alone 17 I'm looking for. I also went to Andy Billig's office. His manager his office worker was great, and I called Matt Shea. But I'm definitely going to take that first quick step, and I'm going to work towards 17 constitutions, and I want them graded, just like a baseball card, and passed back and forth between the winner of Freeman versus Medical Lake every year. They're in the Northeast A-League. And thank you all for your time.
Is Alan McDowell.
First, I'd like to thank one of the council members for trying to help me find the missing police report when I was attempting to build a political action committee to put people like Stuckert and everybody in power at the time back in 2006. But that police report is missing, and I don't think it's ever going to be found. So, or it was never made up. Another council member asked or told me that about a better process of trying to explain this situation I have with mental health and my disagreements. And the first step in that process is asking, what is the problem? The pharmaceutical industry is continually fabricating research to drive the worst possible mental health outcomes for unlimited sales of drugs, resulting in serious brain damage and dependence on the state for citizens. What is the problem? Citizens are being taught socialist-style communication techniques for dealing with business, family, religious, and political conflicts by use of state-contracted agencies for unconstitutionally detaining opposition, even when no laws have been broken and the detainee is the victim. What is the problem? The police departments are continually filing reports that meet the standards of the falsified research supporting the pharmaceutical industry. What is the problem? Mental health agencies are training, educating, and financing social workers to write misinformation for the highest profit, keeping innocent individuals detained on false information. What's the problem? Also forcing citizens, powerful drugs causing severe brain damage and mental health behaviors that are ongoing. They're also targeting schools for future lifetime consumers. and police departments are training to write that false information. So it's covering a lot of different industries, and I'm going to continue to come down and here and talk about it. And over the next year, I will work thousands of hours, just like I did on memory programs in the lockdown units, to create a better application so that we don't have these problems going on. Thank you.
Alan McDowell.
Alan McDowell, Morgan Acres. First, I'd like to retract the statement of a 120-pound weight class to state a 220-pound weight class for the meeting Monday, July 27th. Tonight, I'm here to read a few Frontier Behavioral Health quotes. MHP statement: we have no knowledge, finances, or time to conduct investigations into whether a person is stating true information or is delusional. Former psych nurse quote: the medical director is extremely manic, hard to work with, and doesn't listen to anyone. Current psychiatrist quote: this area is the worst civil liberties area in the country. I'll give council an example of how fraudulent and mental health industry has become. One of my best friends in town is a medical worker that writes intake in hospital emergency rooms. The guy loves my work, even nicknamed me Iron Man for creating Memory Programs LLC, creating the best program ever created in the country for bringing down PRNs and psych drugs in this fraudulent industry. I asked him one day if it was currently possible to provide him my current credentials in the emergency room. He stated that it would be impossible for me to give legitimate, verifiable information to the medical field after being taken down on false information by the police department unless he knew me personally on the outside. That's why I'm counterfiling every police report accusation on business and political conflicts as well as family conflicts and publicizing for everyone to see. It's time for America to turn to the Constitution and away from socialist behavioral modification constructed by the Diagnostic Statistical Manual and inherited by socialist countries of today and the former Soviet Union. All week, I've been attempting to verify information all over town along with the Freeman School District records. I was trespassed off property for attempting to explain the dangers of not cross-referencing the medical field. I also spent maybe 15 minutes being pretty much blacklisted by a certain energy assistance nonprofit attempting to verify documentation on an address that a former FBH medical director marked as delusional on a maliciously falsified medical report. I should thank the head of that energy assistance nonprofit for creating a delayed transfer process to finally verify information FBH refused to write in their medical reports that would have proven information in the past would have proved when it was right in front of their face. I would also like to disagree with FBH's cartoonist pamphlets with graphics that appear to be drawn up by illegal drug users to the point a person can't tell if they are visualizing the harmful effects of the drugs or getting an exciting adventure. One statement in the pamphlet states, how does marijuana affect nerve cells in the brain? Marijuana interferes with some parts of the brain, such as those affecting emotions, memory, and control to lose balance and control.
Mr. McDowell, 3 minutes. Thank you very much, sir. Henry Lauder.
Mr. McDowell.
I can't tell you how large the conflict of interest is with FBH training officers. That's a huge advertising buy. And we need what I'm doing right now is trying to develop a cross-reference system. So if I state that I played football or what I did in high school is what I say I've done in high school, or if I'm working on a political campaign, this is what I'm doing right now, it has to be cross-referenced. And a lot of the time it's not. So if I break records in school, they say I'm troubled, schizophrenic, bipolar disorder, manic, delusional, and needing help. You bet I'm in need of some help right now. Who is going to help me find my weightlifting records? One 500 to 600 pound calculated 10 rep max with 5 to 6 plates on each side was put on the board when I left Freeman High School in 2002. One record was put in the senior time capsule and another was handed over to 24 Hour Fitness maybe around 2003 with a classmate working in the facility across from the plaza where a Method fruit stand now sits. So, if you were in another city and you got into trouble, you could be walking down the street, they say, what do you do? I'm a council member somewhere or such. And if you had a conflict of interest or something, you could easily be put in a unit. And if you were drugged up, you would have a heck of a time making it back here to council, because you'd have chemical withdrawal. First you would be drugged into a state where your tongue was hanging out of your mouth and you couldn't breathe, and you'd be flopping around on the floor. And then when you come out of that, there would be a chemical dependence for a few weeks, and then coming out of that, you'd have a chemical withdrawal, and you'd go into mania. So just think about this alliance you have with the police department and the FBH. It's definitely a conflict of interest, and it's definitely all over the country, and it's definitely set up by the huge pharmaceutical industry. Thank you.
Mr. McDowell?
Apology if I'm a little shaken up after going over to the FBI and being told that I'm mentally ill on proper documentation and verifying factual information to counter any delusions on diagnosis made up by FBH. I think council should understand that around the world, societies have completely collapsed on not documenting information properly, on blacklisting individuals, such as in the Soviet Union, such as in North Korea. The Taliban has stripped records. You see often that museums are stripped of records. And I just question in this society the documentation system, because I go through thousands of files, I go through police reports, and I'm not getting proper documentation. I get a lot of false information and no ability for the individual to counter information. So I have multiple files from Freeman High School missing, but I definitely feel for one of the council members who lost some paperwork a few weeks ago in the office and told me about it. I actually lost 300 files from East Central that I worked on for quite some time that I told you about when I went to East Central with my second speech for City Council. But right now I'm trying to figure out where my all-time weightlifting records are from Freeman High School, and I worked 6 years for those weightlifting records. And I'm told by GNC that they could have been the all-time national records for 10 rep maxes, 500 to 600 pounds for a 120-pound individual at 19 years old, 13 attempts at 10 actual verifications, which weren't completely verified. But I got an academic award I don't believe I deserve. It was for health, which I got a C in, and maybe physical education I got maybe a B+ in combined. But now we have a principal that should have been with oversight at Freeman High School today. He was a health instructor back then who should have had oversight over this award. I would rather have my actual records back. For any citizens watching today that know people from Freeman School District, I would actually like my weightlifting records back, which could be national records, which I work for, and I've been chemically restrained against will by Frontier Behavioral Health for actually stating that I had those records, and I'm just wondering why Freeman High School took those records down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. Gary Edwards.
Memory Programs, LLC, Alan McDowell, P.O. Box 686, Spokane, Washington 99210. I'm here today, I'm looking for citizens for sweat equity contracts in the area, specifically a person who has a degree in occupational therapy and another individual in graphic design who is fed up with the pharmaceutical industry taking away individuals' rights, specifically the First Amendment and many other amendments to the Constitution. And you can send your applications or resume to Memory Programs, P.O. Box 686, Spokane, Washington 99210. Thanks.
And with that, we're going to move into the legislative agenda. And then Laura Carter.
Alan McDowell Memory Programs, LLC. It should be known by all of you that psychiatrists have the highest rate of Medicare and Medicaid fraud of all professions in the United States in the medical field. They also have the highest rates of sexual abuse, which includes the attempted sex offending doctor written up in the Spokesman Review, who wasn't fired from one of the mega hospital complexes on the Hill. The only way to counter fraud among psychiatrists is through insurance companies. Now, we have a major problem with Obamacare coming through the pipes. It's called the fee for services, and insurance companies are now paid extra for fraudulent detainment against will. So who in this city is going to protect the citizens of Spokane from the Gestapo detainment system? Don't ask the police ombudsman. That office refers all problems to FBH. Don't ask the police department. They have a lifelong member and student of the unconstitutional DSM union. Don't ask any officer in this town for help. They are all trained by none other than FBH. Don't ask the ambulance service for a legitimate report to file. They make $600 per ride, all billed to the fee-for-service insurance companies, who wouldn't dare call the DEA for chemically detaining cognitive working citizens with productive lives. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Carter?
Alan McDowell Memory Programs, LLC. It should be known by all of you that psychiatrists have the highest rate of Medicare and Medicaid fraud of all professions in the United States in the medical field. They also have the highest rates of sexual abuse, which includes the attempted sex offending doctor written up in the Spokesman Review, who wasn't fired from one of the mega hospital complexes on the Hill. The only way to counter fraud among psychiatrists is through insurance companies. Now, we have a major problem with Obamacare coming through the pipes. It's called the fee for services, and insurance companies are now paid extra for fraudulent detainment against will. So who in this city is going to protect the citizens of Spokane from the Gestapo detainment system? Don't ask the police ombudsman. That office refers all problems to FBH. Don't ask the police department. They have a lifelong member and student of the unconstitutional DSM union. Don't ask any officer in this town for help. They are all trained by none other than FBH. Don't ask the ambulance service for a legitimate report to file. They make $600 per ride, all billed to the fee-for-service insurance companies, who wouldn't dare call the DEA for chemically detaining cognitive working citizens with productive lives. Thank you for your time. Today I stand in front of council with a growing scar on my face called vitiligo. This disease is a strong representation of why government officials, like the council on stage, should stay the hell out of the medical field. The council, county commissioner's office, and the federal government have far overreached boundaries set by the Constitution to protect citizens. By enforcing laws to force FDA-approved heroin, crack, speed, and opium-like drugs on citizens who have not broken any law, you align yourselves with absolute socialism. The consequences are inducing diseases with the big pharma chemicals that keep citizens out of work and from becoming productive citizens, meeting the full potential they were biologically born with. This scar is the result of your government policy of enforcing laws to chemically restrain independent citizens against will through a grossly falsified documentation system for the highest possible big pharma financial gains. Obviously, yourselves and your predecessors have learned nothing from the Holocaust, nothing from the Soviet Union, nothing from Mao's China, and nothing from the Dark Ages. How many teenagers have been overdosed to death in hospitals by overpowering psychiatrists looking for a dollar? This council and government's continued support of Dark Ages behavioral health practices is far from what Jefferson, Madison, Washington, Franklin, and other founders intended for this country. The council can continue to support and be oblivious to the actual torture enforced by behavioral health psychiatrists, but don't expect that any individual on this stage is above any laws enforcing behavioral health on themselves or out of jurisdiction. 40-plus years from now, each of you council members will hit the behavioral health system at full force. Some of you may escape with early deaths or strong, supportive families that keep you away from big pharma industry, but Many of you will follow in your predecessors' footsteps over the past 50-plus years and be chemically cocktailed to the point of no return. The FDA-approved opium-like drugs will create confusion, foggy eyesight, short-term memory loss, long-term memory loss, agitation, and eventually mania from drug changes dealing with chemical withdrawal. You may be put in a lockdown unit where you continually fight for your constitutional rights while the slumlord facility or retirement home administrator goes through every dollar you ever earned in your life until the government picks up the tab for more than $150,000 a year or more by all estimated projections. Every Monday when I come to this stage and talk, I want you to look at how the uncurable vitiligo brought on by the support of your big pharma behavioral contracts progresses, and remember that the time is ticking to your own institutionalizations in 40 years. Thank you for your time.
Paul Lugo?
William Roswell, 2303 North Stone. Council President, I would like to read a statement here today. We have a liberal oxymoron statement on our hands. Right now, regulate business to destroy large corporations. Peace groups continually march in our streets and put leftist council members in place that continually lobby two directions. One against large corporations in support of small business against McDonald's, Walmart, Comcast, Target, and every big mall national franchise. At the same time, these people call on council for stiff regulation, high taxes, and a giant minimum wage for every worker in this city and state. Large corporations continually take advantage because they have the department strategy, lawyers, and cheap products to overcome all the rules set forth by the socialists. The only area that is left is really lobbying for more medical, and lots more medical along with social services. We are left with giant corporations, overseas workers, and everyone else being a social worker or medical practitioner for lots of malpractice and zero in small business department.
Thank you, Mr. Roswell. Alan McDowell?
Alan McDowell, Morgan Acres. Last week, a citizen came up to the stand to give Ozzie an A+ as county sheriff. I strongly disagree. I wouldn't give him a B for supporting the Bible or a C for supporting the Constitution he regularly talks about, but I might give him a D for replacing the Bible with the DSM. I wouldn't give him a C for his constitutional thumping because he's a proud board member or director of the biggest anti-Bible thumping organization in the county, and clearly the most anti-constitutional organization in Spokane County, being Frontier Behavioral Health, which is an F. I disagree with this communist DSM book-toting tyrant's ideas for placing a metro police organization under the county sheriff's department in the city of Spokane. The man is clearly either too dumb to go through the proper channels in firing his officers, or smart enough to not go through the proper channels purposely so his union boss can shred the decisions he makes, keeping those bad cops on the force. His ideas on unmarked cars are confusingly dangerous to the citizens and have countless times gotten innocent Americans killed around the country, obviously in Spokane County. Until Spokane County sells off the vehicles to protect the rights of citizens, I suggest a new protocol he put in place for citizens to call on emergency police hotline before officers engage in any conversation. This process starts on a loudspeaker and made loud and clear to all citizens through the website and the contact process. This will prevent false officers from kidnapping and raping citizens, which is an unintended consequence of having such a plan in place like our current one. Also, allow citizens to call the hotline to mark the vehicle snooping near citizen property for verification purposes. I add that cruel and unusual punishment being enforced by ideas written in the DSM violates Amendment 8 of the United States Constitution, among many other unconstitutional processes FBH promotes. If Ozzie supporters like the DSM so much, they should move to Russia. I hear lately that they are interested in taking over more than just Crimea to rebuild the former Soviet Union. I'm sorry to inform yourselves and the public that any man or woman on this stage supporting FBH is in the same boat as Ozzy on the issue of constitutional liberties and fully against Christianity and U.S. constitutional beliefs. There is one statement I disagree with Ozzy about on the reply of what's going on in the hospital system. This is out of my wheelhouse. Being an FBH director puts this Wizard of Oz sheriff in the unique position of understanding everything going on in our unconstitutional hospital industrial complex. This wizard has the most powerful position
you,
in
Mr.
the county
McDowell.
of having unconstitutional jurisdiction
Thank you, Mr.
from the start
McDowell.
of the absolute finish, overseeing.
Thank you,
overseeing
Mr.
football.
McDowell. If you want to speak next week, you have to stop when I ask you to, please. And just in full public disclosure, my wife worked at FBH for 12 years, and I still know about 40 people that work there.
Again, I'm here to talk about marijuana. I think you all should take a hard look at the research. There's more research that medical problems dealing with heart, cardiac issues, pulmonary issues, cancer, and like I stated before, it's more like thank you for smoking lobbyists in our universities, doing independent research outside the universities, and we need more researchers on the street to take a look at what people say happened when they were in high school, the people in social services that aren't working currently in their 20s and 30s, or even the ones that are 50 or 60 and the ones that lived in the 1960s. I hear all the time that grade point averages were above three-point GPAs, and then individuals started smoking marijuana, and they dropped out of school, were never able to work again, and ended up in social services. I feel that when I take a look at politicians today, they want a quick money, quick taxes, they want quick gratification or something. But in the overall long run, you're going to charge up $1,000, $2,000, and $3,000 in mental health, medical support over the individual's lifetime. And that's all I have to say today.
And then Catherine Isabel.
How do we do this?
What's that?
It's coming on.
It's got it.
Okay, I complained to Kathy McMorris that there was a problem with contact highs downtown, and it has a lot to do with medicinal use of marijuana and the cards that are being given out and police not being able to detain or take away anybody off the sidewalks downtown. She said, "Dear Alan, thank you for contacting me regarding the use of medical marijuana. It is an honor to represent the people of Eastern Washington, and I appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts with me. While I support research into alternative medical treatments, studies have shown marijuana possesses significant addictive chemical properties that have had devastating effects on users. Additionally, marijuana is still classified as a Schedule I controlled substance for all federal purposes, and until there are sufficient studies to remove the classification, the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, and other federal agencies have an obligation to enforce the law." So today I went down to the dungeon at the DEA, and they say that their hands are strapped behind their backs because of what's going on in the executive branch of the White House. And I personally feel that we have corrupt Chicago politicians running the White House. They're like Tamani Hall politicians that really don't care about drugs. You know, in the past, to get into the military, you couldn't use drugs, but now we have an executive in the White House that is proud to say that he's done cocaine or any drugs through his past all the way back, and marijuana, and doesn't have a problem with that. I'm not sure how to get this problem solved. We're not looking at the research. I ask all of you to watch the movie Thank You for Smoking, because that is exactly what's going on in the research facilities in these universities. It's not real research. Over, 50 to 100 years, we did research on marijuana, and it showed that the brain cell shrinks. It never killed the brain cell, but it shrinks, and that's what we learned in school. And we're hitting the point of no return on the shrinkage, because you're not going to recover the brain cell after you've smoked marijuana that's 1,000% to 2,000% stronger than it was in the 1960s. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. Catherine Isabel, and then Anson Avery.
I want to thank all of you for showing up on this great and wondrous 420 holiday. Thank you all for building this great Spokane into Spokamsterdam. Spokamsterdam is a hard-working, hard-selling city that allows marijuana to be smoked 1/4 block from the police station with heavy surveillance and video cameras. I will have to do a check and see if my good security guard friend and former schoolmate ever caught the perpetrator that thought it would be humorous to give me a contact high at the bus plaza. Marijuana is a drug 1,000 to 2,000% more potent than the drug labeled the same substance in the 1960s. The legalization of this version of the genetically altered or modified drug of the year 2015 causes severe memory loss. It induces individuals to make the opposite decisions than they normally make. The decisions turn out more times to be extremely risky sexual behaviors, and using stronger, more dangerous drugs in the outcome. The brain, with this 1,000 to 2,000% potency to that of the 1960s, creates a strong dependency. Coming off, the individual becomes violent and manic. Now, from reviewing the big pharmaceutical industry and going through social services for 2 years, I found that there is no recreational use anymore. The pharmaceutical industry has created a myth or an idea that everybody is self-medicating and they have a mental health issue. Then they come in with their drugs. $1,000, $2,000, and $3,000 cocktails to put on everyone that has ever used marijuana for recreational purposes. And year after year, the individual becomes dependent on these drugs. And it charges the state sometimes $3,000 a month. Tens of thousands over, sometimes between $10,000 and $15,000 a year. And if you go over a lifetime, you're talking about putting a person in the social services system, which will
Mr. McDowell, it's been 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Catherine Isabel.
Excuse me a little bit, but it's been a while since I've come up in front of people since, 2004, 6th Legislative District presidential campaign. And I've learned a lot since then, before we created the Progressive Democrats of America. The state representative of the 3rd District was a competitor of mine, and I want to send him a strong message. So now, the city of Spokane and their system of operation and how the police department operates and how these independent contractors operate believed that I didn't have the girlfriend I had, didn't break the weightlifting records that I did in high school, wasn't captain of the football team, didn't win the most inspirational award for football, wasn't lineman of the year, wasn't voted best personality in the high school class, didn't win the academic award for health and fitness in high school, wasn't the Kucinich campaign coordinator of the 5th Congressional District, didn't spend 500 hours working for the city of Spokane in my internship at East Central, didn't own a company called Memory Programs, LLC, didn't have a degree in social services, didn't have a certificate in banking, didn't set up the Progressive Democrats of America meeting when they took me down the night before it all happened. But I do agree with the quack at FBH that states this is the worst civil liberties area in the entire country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. And now we're going to move on to our legislative agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Umato. Alan McDowell?
Apologize last week for saying 500 hours. I interned here. It was more like 250 to 300. The city should attempt to run better marketing campaigns to make the community center more profitable. When interning here, I attempted to do an outreach drive to drive more traffic to the center, but because of liability issues, I was prohibited from driving a legitimate campaign to make the center more profitable. I believe that the center over the years has focused too much on accountability accommodating seniors by paying staff to handle activities, and I might be a little bit off because I don't know what's going on here now, and these issues just came up. More control should be given to 60 and up individuals that are retired to run the center as a nonprofit, use the kitchen and area to bake goods, build crafts, sew quilts, can foods, and sell products made by the members. The center should find ways to become more self-sustaining while attempting to conquer liability insurance issues in the year 2015 that are obviously burdensome. The memoir project I worked on at this center is financially beneficial if marketed and sold properly. The city should invite journalists and English lit students to write and sell memoirs for the center.